A warm welcome to Lesbian Tales. Unfolded. We appreciate each one of you being here. Before we begin, we'd love to know which corner of the globe are you watching from. Share with us in the comments. Now, let's dive into today's story. I was up to my elbows in curds when the final notice came. Third one this month. Each envelope redder than the last. Bankruptcy wasn't just knocking at my door anymore. It was picking the damn lock. Perfect timing, I muttered, flicking it away from my fingers. Santa Ana had gone from 0 artisanal food shops to about 50 in the last 2 years. Suddenly, everyone with a Pinterest account was making small batch whatever, and here I was, Jaqueline Rogers, 3rd-generation cheesemaker, about to lose everything because some tech bro decided goat cheese was his passion project. I had exactly 4 hours to get my specialty Alpine-style wheels to the Westside Farmers Market. My last hope. The market manager had finally retired, and rumor had it the new one was actually looking for authentic vendors, instead of the usual trust fund hobbyists. The van made it exactly 3 blocks before the grinding noise started. By mile 2, smoke belched from under the hood. I managed to limp into Gus's auto repair before the whole transmission gave up the ghost. 4 hours minimum, Gus said after a quick look. His grease-stained clipboard might as well have been my death certificate. I slumped onto the plastic waiting room chair and watched my future circle the drain. Without market sales, I'd miss next. Month's rent, game over. Is he always this optimistic, or am I special? I asked the woman sitting across from me, mostly talking to myself. Gus. He once told me my car needed its own funeral. She looked up from her phone, and damn if time didn't stop for a second. Auburn hair twisted into a messy bun, freckles scattered across her nose, and eyes the color of the darkest honey I'd ever folded into my cheese. I'm Lila, by the way. Lila Walker. Jaqueline, I said, suddenly conscious of the milk stains on my apron. You waiting on a miracle too? Oil change. You seem stressed. Her smile did something weird to my stomach. I'm about to lose my spot at the market because of this damn van, and then my shop because of that. So yeah, stressed works. Lila leaned forward. Westside Market? That's the one. I've been trying to get in for months, and today was finally. I can push your slot till later this afternoon, she said casually, like offering someone a stick of gum. I blinked. You can what now? I'm the new market manager. She shrugged, like it wasn't the most important sentence anyone had said to me all year. Started last month, trying to get some real artisans back in. What do you sell? Cheese? Small batch, local, traditional methods. My grandmother's recipes mostly. I tried not to sound desperate. You'd really do that? Move my slot? I've been looking for a decent cheese vendor since I started. The last guy was selling factory stuff with homemade labels slapped on. She rolled her eyes. I've got a rental truck out back. Help me finish my errands and I'll help you deliver your stuff after. 3 hours later, we were hauling wheels of my Midnight Moon Alpine into the back of her truck. I couldn't decide if she was my guardian angel, or just another Santa Ana hipster with good intentions. Either way, I wasn't about to question my luck. So what made you take the market job? I asked as we hit the highway. Needed a change. Used to work in galleries. Her answers were clipped, like she was editing herself. Art to agriculture seems like quite the leap. Something flickered across her expression. I like real things. Things people make with their hands. Her eyes flicked to mine. Things with history. The way she said it made my cheeks warm. I blamed it on the broken air conditioning. When we pulled into the market, I expected to be relegated to some back corner. Instead, Lila led me to the main aisle. Prime real estate. This can't be right, I said. This spot must cost. Consider it an investment in the market's future. She helped me unload, her hands quick and surprisingly strong. "I'm betting you'll bring in the customers I need." By closing time, I'd sold out completely. As I packed up my empty coolers, I caught Lila watching me from across the lot. A small smile playing on her lips. Something fluttered in my chest. Hope, maybe. Or something else entirely. The next market day, I arrived 2 hours early, half expecting my prime spot to have vanished like some farmer's market Cinderella story. But there it was, my name, scrawled on a chalkboard marker, right next to the fresh flower stand. And across, from the organic bakery, the holy trinity of foot traffic. "You look surprised," Lila said, appearing beside me with a clipboard and a thermos of coffee. "Did you think I was joking?" "In this business, you learn not to count on anything," admitted, unloading my coolers. My cheese sales last weekend had paid this month's electric bill. One crisis averted. 20% more to go. "Well, count on this spot being yours every Saturday." She paused, watching me arrange my display. "That Alpine you brought last week, it's good. Really good." I felt an unexpected flush of pride. Family recipe. My grandmother was from a tiny village in Switzerland. Learned from her father, who learned from his. "You went," she said, nodding appreciatively. "That's what this market's been missing." As more vendors arrived, I noticed how differently Lila treated me. With others, she was all business, efficient, friendly, but professional. With me, there was something else. Lingering glances, inside, jokes already forming. When our hands accidentally brushed as she helped me set up my price cards, I felt a jolt that had nothing to do with static electricity. "Sorry," she murmured, pulling back quickly. "It's fine," I said. Too fast. Our eyes met for a heartbeat too long. The moment shattered when a shadow fell across my table. Roger Whitman, the market's long-standing dairy vendor, was staring at my display with thinly veiled contempt. "Bit crowded in the dairy section these days," he said, directing the comment to Lila. "Thought we had an exclusivity agreement." Lila straightened, suddenly all business. "Your agreement covered mass-produced dairy. Jacqueline's artisanal cheese is a different category." "Fancy words for the same product," Roger snorted. "Been here 8 years, Walker. You've been here what, 8 minutes?" I opened my mouth to intervene, but Lila's hand lightly touched my arm, stopping me. Her fingers were cool against my skin. "Quality speaks for itself," she replied evenly. The market board approved unanimously. Roger's face darkened. "We'll see how unanimous they feel when I remind them who brings in the school tour groups." He stomped off, leaving a cloud of tension. "Sorry about that," Lila sighed. "Roger thinks he owns the place." "Should I be worried?" "No, he's all bark." But her expression suggested otherwise. "Just focus on selling. Success is the best revenge." And sell I did. By noon, my display was half empty. Even better was watching customers' faces as they sampled my cheeses. That moment of surprise and delight. One woman actually closed her eyes and sighed after trying my lavender-infused chèvre. "You're a hit," Lila said, appearing during a brief lull. She'd shed her official market manager vest in the afternoon heat, revealing a simple tank top that showed off toned arms dotted with freckles. "Thanks to this spot," I replied, trying not to stare. "Thanks to your cheese," she corrected, leaning against my table. "Though I'm starting to think I created a monster. 3 people asked if you'll be here every week." "Will I?" I asked, suddenly fearful of losing this lifeline. Something in her expression softened. "As long as I have anything to say about it." After closing, Lila helped me pack up. As we loaded the last cooler into my newly repaired van, she hesitated. "There's a market committee meeting Thursday night. Roger's on the warpath." She tucked a strand of auburn hair behind her ear. Having the vendor in question there might help. Defending my honor? I teased. Defending great cheese, she replied. But her smile held something more. And maybe after, we could grab a drink, discuss market strategy. My heart did a stupid little flip. Strategy, right? Sounds necessary. Purely professional, she agreed, though her eyes suggested otherwise. As I drove away, I caught her watching me in the rearview mirror, still standing in the same spot. I told myself this flutter in my chest was just business excitement, a new market opportunity, nothing to do with the way sunlight caught the gold flecks in her brown eyes, or how her hand had felt against my arm. Nothing at all. The news alert buzzed on my phone while I was in the middle of flipping a wheel of camembert. $240,000 for unknown woman. Mystery portrait breaks Santa Ana auction record. I nearly dropped the cheese. Then I saw the thumbnail image. Me. It was definitely me. Or someone who could be my twin. Same wavy blonde hair. Same slight tilt to the head. Same half smile I've seen in my own mirror. I zoomed in, hands trembling. The painting showed a woman in profile, looking out a window. Early morning light catching her features. The signature was tiny. Just initials, TWW. I called Dad immediately. Did you commission a portrait of me without telling me? What? No, why would I? There's a painting of me that just sold for nearly $250,000. Dad laughed. Clara, if I had that kind of money, I'd pay off your cheese shop loan, not buy fancy art. I spent the rest of the afternoon obsessively searching for information about the painting. It had been sold through Preston Gallery to an anonymous buyer. The artist was unnamed. The title was simply Woman at Dawn. By evening, my brain was spinning with conspiracy theories. Identity theft, secret twin, some creepy stalker with artistic talent. Lila's text arrived at 7:30. Still on for drinks? The committee meeting went well. Roger backed down. I'd completely forgotten. I texted back, on my way. You won't believe what happened. The bar was dimly lit. All exposed brick and Edison bulbs. Typical Santa Ana hipster joint. Lila had claimed a corner booth. 2 beers already waiting. When I slid in beside her, she clinked her glass against mine. To victory, she said. Roger's exclusivity claim mysteriously disappeared when the board asked to see the actual contract. That's great, I replied, distractedly pulling out my phone. But look at this. Lila took the phone, her expression unreadable as she stared at the article. Then slowly, her face drained of color. That's uncanny, she finally said, her voice strangely tight. She wouldn't meet my eyes. Uncanny? It's damn near identical. Someone painted me without my knowledge and sold it for more than I'll make in 5 years. Maybe it just looks like you, Lila suggested, taking a long sip of beer. Art is subjective. Look at the mole on the neck. I have that exact same one. I pulled my hair back to show her. This isn't coincidence. Lila's eyes lingered on my neck longer than necessary. What are you going to do? Find the artist? Find out how they know me? Find out why my face is worth a fortune to someone? I drained half my beer in one go. The gallery refused to give me any information when I called. 2 drinks later, we'd moved from beer to whiskey, and Lila had relaxed enough to theorize with me. We sat shoulder to shoulder, scrolling through art websites on my phone. Maybe you're the reincarnation of someone famous, she suggested, her breath warm against my cheek. Or maybe I sleep modeled in art school, I countered. Or maybe, Lila said, her voice dropping lower. You're just that beautiful. Our eyes met, and, for a moment, everything else disappeared. The bar noise faded. My heart thundered in my ears. Her gaze dropped to my lips, and I found myself leaning slightly toward her. Then she blinked, breaking the spell. We should, Check the Preston Gallery website again. After another hour of searching and 3 more drinks, we decided to take the investigation to my apartment, where I had a larger screen. Which is how Lila Walker ended up sprawled on my couch at 1 a.m., her shoes off, scrolling through auction records while I made coffee. "The artist has to be someone who knows you," she called out. "The detail is too perfect." "I don't know any artists," I replied, bringing 2 mugs into the living room. "Except..." I stopped suddenly, looking at her. "What did you say you did? Before managing the market?" "I worked in galleries," she answered carefully. "As what? A curator? Director?" She hesitated. "Various roles." Something clicked. "What's your middle name, Lila?" "What? Why?" "The artist's initials. TWW. Lila Walker." Her face gave everything away. Eyes widening, cheeks flushing. "It's not what you think." But before she could explain, the whiskey and late hour caught up with me. The room tilted pleasantly. I remember mumbling something about needing to sit down. And then Lila was beside me, her arm around my shoulders. "We'll figure it out tomorrow," she said softly. The last thing I remember before drifting off was the warmth of her body against mine, our limbs tangled together on my too small couch, and the strange, comforting thought that maybe, just maybe, being seen, really seen, by someone wasn't the worst thing in the world. I woke to sunlight streaming across my face and the unmistakable smell of fresh coffee. For one disoriented moment, I thought I was back in my grandmother's kitchen in Vermont. Then reality crashed in. The portrait, the whiskey, and Lila Walker, sleeping on my couch, except she wasn't sleeping anymore. She was standing in my kitchen, wearing yesterday's clothes, her auburn hair twisted into a messy bun as she poured coffee into my mismatched mugs. "Morning," she said too brightly. "Hope you don't mind." I found the coffee. I sat up, wincing, at the dull throb behind my eyes. "What time is it?" "Just after 7. She handed me a mug, careful not to let our fingers touch. The careful distance between us felt deliberate, as if last night's closeness had been erased along with the alcohol in our systems. "About last night," I began. "You were tired. We both were." Lila cut me off. "The portrait mystery got to us." "And the TWW coincidence?" She laughed too quickly. "Lots of people have those initials. Thomas White, Tabitha Wilson." "Lila Walker," I added, watching her face. A flash of something, guilt, fear, crossed her expression before she masked it with a sip of coffee. "I should go, actually. Market paperwork waiting. On a Sunday?" "Farmers don't take weekends off," she replied, already gathering her phone and jacket. "Thanks for the couch." And just like that, she was gone, leaving me with a half-empty coffee mug and the lingering scent of her shampoo on my throw pillow. By Monday, I'd convinced myself to drop the portrait mystery. I had bigger problems, like the leak in my aging room ceiling and a supplier threatening to double my milk prices. But Wednesday brought another text from Lila, found something about the painting. The collector is showing it privately. I got us invited, which is how I found myself in a sleek Tesla 2 days later, heading toward the hills above Santa Ana, while Lila explained our cover story. "We're interested in commissioning works from emerging artists," she said, eyes on the road. "You're a wealthy cheese heiress from Wisconsin." "Wisconsin? Why not Switzerland?" "Because I know exactly one fact about Wisconsin cheese and nothing about Switzerland." I laughed, despite my nerves. "Where did you even get this invitation?" "Gallery connections." She paused. "From my old life." Before I could press further, we arrived at an imposing modernist structure of glass and concrete. A uniformed attendant took Lila's name and ushered us into a stark white foyer where a thin man with round spectacles waited. "Miss Walker, welcome," he said, shaking Lila's hand with obvious familiarity. "And this must be your client, Max Preston. Meet Jacqueline Rogers," Lila said smoothly. Clara's looking to invest in emerging talent. Preston's eyes narrowed slightly as he studied my face. Fascinating, he murmured. Please, follow me. He led us through a series of minimalist rooms to a private viewing space, where on my knee, the far wall hung the portrait. Seeing it full size stole my breath. It wasn't just similar to me. It was me, captured in a moment of quiet contemplation. The artist had somehow painted me more honestly than any photograph ever had. Remarkable resemblance, Preston commented, watching me closely. The artist clearly has a gift for capturing essence. Who is the artist? I managed to ask. Anonymous, unfortunately. They work through an agent. He turned to Lila. You understand how these things work, of course. Something passed between them. Recognition, perhaps. Lila's jaw tightened, almost imperceptibly. The buyer is interested in meeting your client, Preston continued, still addressing Lila. The resemblance is part of the appeal. We'd need to know more about the artist first, Lila replied. Preston smiled thinly. All I can share is the signature. TW? He looked directly at me. Does that mean anything to you, Miss Rogers? Should it? I asked, my heart racing. Perhaps not, he conceded. But the buyer is convinced there's a connection. He handed Lila a business card. When you're ready to be honest about why you're really here, call this number. On the silent drive back, I stared out the window, mind racing. Finally, when we hit the highway, I turned to Lila. You knew him from before. She sighed. Max Preston owns the gallery where I used to work. As what, Lila? Just tell me. Another long pause. I was an artist, NTW. Her knuckles whitened on the steering wheel. That's my signature. She swallowed hard. I painted the portrait, Clara. I painted you. Pull over, I demanded, my voice tight with anger and confusion. Lila signaled and guided the Tesla to the shoulder of the highway. Cars streamed past us as she killed the engine. The silence that followed felt electric, dangerous. You painted me, I repeated, turning in my seat to face her. A complete stranger, and you just, decided to capture my likeness and sell it without my permission? I didn't sell it, she said quietly, staring straight ahead. And you weren't a stranger? Not exactly. What does that mean? We met at the repair shop 3 weeks ago. Lila finally looked at me, her brown eyes pleading. I saw you before that, at the winter market downtown. 6 months ago. You were selling cheese samples, talking about the aging process. You had snowflakes in your hair, snowflakes in your hair, she swallowed. I couldn't stop looking at you. I remembered that day. A rare Santa Ana snowfall. Customers few and far between. I didn't remember Lila. So you stalked me and painted me without my consent? I didn't stalk you, she protested. I saw you once, and you stuck with me. I paint impressions, moments that move me. It wasn't supposed to go anywhere. Yet somehow it wound up in an auction, for $1 million. Her face darkened. That was Diana. Your ex? Your ex? Lila's hands twisted in her lap. She was my art dealer, before we started dating. When we broke up, she took some of my work. I thought she was just being spiteful. I never imagined she'd sell anything. She looked up at me. The portrait was personal. It was never meant to be seen. Something in her expression made my anger falter. Why did you paint me? Because... She hesitated. Because you looked so passionate. About cheese, of all things. The way your eyes lit up when you talked about cultures and aging, it was beautiful. Real. In a world full of people pretending, you were genuinely in love with your work. Her voice softened. I hadn't felt inspired in months. Then I saw you, and suddenly I couldn't stop painting. I didn't know what to say. Part of me was still furious, but another part, a growing part, was oddly touched. Why hide it from me? When we met at the repair shop, you must have recognized me. I nearly had a heart attack when you spoke to me, she admitted with a small laugh. I'd spent so many hours with your face, and suddenly there you were, in the flesh. It felt like fate. She sighed. Then you mentioned cheese, and I realized who you were. I was too embarrassed to say anything. So you offered me the market spot to what? Ease your conscience? No. Her response was emphatic. I gave you that spot because you deserve it. Your cheese is extraordinary. She paused. Getting to know you was just a bonus. We sat in silence, watching cars speed by. Finally, I asked the question burning in my mind. What happened with your art career? Why the farmer's market? Lila leaned her head back against the seat. I got tired of the game, the pretension, creating things just to please critics and collectors. She turned to me. The day I saw you at the winter market was my last gallery opening. I walked out halfway through, drove to the market, and there you were, making something real, something that mattered. Without thinking, I reached over and took her hand. Her fingers were warm, slightly calloused. You should have told me, I said, but the anger had drained from my voice. I know. She looked down at our joined hands. I was afraid you'd hate me. I'm still processing this, I admitted. But I don't hate you. Her eyes met mine, vulnerable and hopeful. Could second guesses myself. I leaned across the center console. Her breath hitched as I moved closer, my free hand coming up to touch her cheek. When our lips finally met, it felt like a question and answer all at once. Soft, tentative, then deepening as she responded. When we broke apart, Lila looked as stunned as I felt. That wasn't how I imagined our first kiss, she whispered. You imagined it? I asked, suddenly shy. Only about 1,000 times. Her smile was so genuine, it made my chest ache. Usually without the highway setting an identity. Crisis, I laughed, the tension finally breaking. This is the strangest situation I've ever been in. Does that mean you want to stop? Her question held a note of fear. Instead of answering, I pulled her toward me again, kissing her more deeply this time. Her hands found their way into my hair and everything else. The portrait, the auction, our complicated meeting, faded into background noise. When we finally drove back to the city, something fundamental had shifted between us. Whatever had started as a lie had somehow stumbled into truth. Mysterious portrait subject identified. Local cheese artisan speaks out. I nearly choked on my coffee, staring at the headlines splashed across the local arts website. Somehow someone had connected me to the painting. The article included a side-by-side comparison of my market promotional photo and the portrait. The resemblance was undeniable. My phone started ringing almost immediately. First my father, then 3 cheese suppliers, then a number I didn't recognize. How did they find out? I asked Lila when she arrived at my shop 20 minutes later, breathless and worried. Preston, she said grimly. He must have tipped them off after our visit. But why would he? Publicity. Mystery sells art. She ran a hand through her auburn hair. I'm so sorry, Clara. This is all my fault. I wanted to be angry, but the distress in her eyes melted my resolve. In the week since our highway kiss, we'd been cautiously exploring whatever was happening between us. Dinners at my place, long walks after market close, more kisses that left me dizzy and wanting. Now this. What do we do? I asked, gesturing to the 3 journalists already gathering outside my shop window. We could run away to Switzerland and make cheese in the Alps. Lila suggested with a weak smile. Before I could answer, my phone pinged with another message, this time from Max Preston himself, requesting a formal interview with the muse and the artist for Art Forum magazine. Interest in the portrait, and by extension my cheese, exploded overnight. By Saturday's market, my stall was swamped with curious customers who came for the scandal but stayed for the samples. I sold out by noon. Silver linings, Lila said, as she helped me pack up early. Your cheese is getting the recognition it deserves. For all the wrong reasons, I sighed. They don't care about traditional methods or local sourcing. They just want to see the woman from the painting. Lila's expression fell. You're right. I've turned you into a sideshow. I caught her hand. Hey, that's not what I meant. Isn't it, though? Her voice was bitter. First, I paint you without permission. Then I accidentally make your business about my art instead of your craft. Lila. Miss Walker. A sharp voice interrupted us. We turned to find a sleek woman in designer sunglasses approaching. I've been looking everywhere for you. Lila's body tensed. Diana. So this was the ex who'd sold the painting. She was exactly as I'd imagined. Elegant, intimidating, calculating. Hiding in a farmer's market, Vivian said, looking around with thinly veiled disdain. How rustic. And this must be your muse. Her eyes raked over me, assessing. The resemblance really is remarkable. What do you want, Vivian? Lila's voice was ice. Your comeback tour, darling. The art world is buzzing about TWW's mysterious return. She handed Lila a folder. 3 offers for commissioned portraits, an exclusive with Art News, and a solo exhibition at my gallery. Your gallery? Lila's laugh was hollow. You mean the gallery you took in the breakup? Diana waved dismissively. Water under the bridge. This portrait series could revive both our careers. There is no series, Lila said firmly. There's one portrait that you stole and sold without my permission. Details. Diana turned to me with a predatory smile. Has she told you how much she could make painting you? You're her masterpiece. Her best work in years. The words hit like a slap. Was that all I was to Lila? A career opportunity? I have your other studies, Vivian continued, twisting the knife. The sketches, the preliminary canvases. You were quite obsessed, weren't you, darling? I looked at Lila, whose face had gone pale. Other paintings? Just studies, Lila whispered. Before the final portrait. Diana smiled triumphantly. I'll let you two discuss. Call me when you're ready to be sensible, Teresa. She walked away, leaving destruction in her wake. The drive to my apartment was silent. Rain had started to fall, matching my mood perfectly. When we arrived, Lila followed me inside like a condemned prisoner. How many paintings? I finally asked. 7 studies. 7 studies. She wouldn't meet my eyes. And dozens of sketches. That's more than inspiration, Lila. I know how it sounds. Her voice cracked. But you have to understand. A sudden pounding on my door interrupted her. I opened it to find Lila standing there. A different Lila than the one behind me, rain-soaked and desperate. I couldn't stay away, she said, water dripping from her hair. I know you're angry about the publicity, but I need to explain. She stopped, finally seeing her doppelganger inside my apartment. 2 Lilas stared at each other, one dry and caught mid-confession, one drenched and confused. What's happening? The rain-soaked Lila asked, looking between us. Diana, Lila growled, looking at her rain-soaked reflection. She always did have a flair for the dramatic. The imposter's face morphed into a smirk, then broke into Diana's sharp features. The wig came off next, revealing short black hair slicked back with hair product. Method acting, Vivian said, dropping the voice modulation. Quite convincing, wasn't it? The things... Get out, Lila demanded, stepping protectively in front of me. Vivian tisked. Not until we finish our conversation about your comeback. The portrait series has real potential. There won't be a series, I found my voice, and you're trespassing. Pity, Diana sighed dramatically. The art world loves a romance. The artist and her muse, finding each other. She examined her manicure casually. I've already promised the gallery investors a collection. Lila's hands balled into fists. You can't promise what isn't yours. Can't I? I own the rights to your early works by contract, including those lovely studies of Ms. Rogers here. With that parting shot, Vivian sauntered out, closing the door behind her with infuriating gentleness. I'll get a restraining order, I said, still shaking. She won't come back. Leela sank onto my couch. She just wanted to show she could, that she still has power over me. I sat beside her, mind reeling from Diana's intrusion and revelations. Did she really own those other paintings of me? Lila nodded miserably. The contract I signed when we were together. I was young and naive. Anything created in her studio, space technically belongs to the gallery. And you painted me there? Before the final portrait? Yes, she looked up, eyes pleading. Clara, I was going to tell you everything. 3 days later, we launched what Lila jokingly called Operation Cheese Renaissance. If I couldn't escape being known as the woman from the portrait, I'd use it to spotlight what actually mattered, my craft. The idea came when I was experimenting with a new blue cheese, working white-veined curds while Lila sketched nearby. The deep blue of the mold against the creamy white cheese reminded her of the ultramarine, pigment she used in seascapes. What if we create cheeses inspired by colors? Lila suggested. Your craft, my eye for color. A collaboration. So began our unconventional partnership. Lila would select pigments from her palette, explaining the emotion and story behind each. Color. I'd translate those qualities into cheese. A bright yellow Gouda infused with saffron for joy. A smoky, charcoal-rinded chèvre for mystery. A pink-hued ricotta with dried rose petals for romance. We worked side by side in my aging room, Lila painting color studies while I developed recipes. Sometimes I'd catch her watching me work, that familiar artist's focus in her eyes. But now, instead of feeling exposed, I felt seen, understood. Cobalt blue, she said one evening, mixing pigments. It's intense but serene. What cheese captures that contradiction? I considered, testing combinations in my mind. A sheep's milk blue aged in porter beer. Sweet but complex, she smiled. Perfect. The colors of Craftline debuted at the market the following Saturday. We displayed each cheese with a small color card explaining the inspiration. Lila's artistic vision, paired with my flavor notes. The response was overwhelming. I've never thought of cheese as art before, one customer admitted, purchasing the entire collection. It's always been art, Lila replied, squeezing my hand beneath the table. You just needed the right frame to see it. By closing time, we'd sold every wheel. More importantly, no one had mentioned the portrait. They were too busy discussing flavor profiles and aging techniques. Exactly what I'd always wanted. As we packed up, a woman with a press badge approached. I'm from Artisanal Food Monthly, she said. We'd love to feature your collaboration in next month's issue. My heart raced. The magazine was prestigious, focused on craft rather than celebrity. We'll need to interview you both, she continued. The cheesemaker and the artist. Your partnership is fascinating. After she left, Lila turned to me, eyes alight. This is it. Recognition for your actual work, not just your face. I laughed, suddenly giddy. Our work. That night, as we celebrated, in my apartment with wine and the prototype of our newest cheese, a delicate white, ash-ripened chèvre with subtle notes of lavender. Lila's fingers traced the edge of my jaw. I used to think capturing you on canvas was my greatest achievement, she murmured. Now I know better. When her lips met mine, I tasted promise and possibility. Whatever had started with a portrait was becoming something far more enduring, a collaboration of heart and hand, color and flavor, artist and artisan. The magazine feature hit newsstands on a crisp autumn morning. Lila brought a copy to my shop before opening hours, her face alight with excitement. Page 27, she said, perching on my workbench as I wiped my hands on my apron. There we were in glossy print, Lila and I, surrounded by wheels of cheese. My aging room transformed into an artist's studio. The headline read, Paletto Palette, when art meets artisanal cheese. They actually got it, I marveled, scanning the article. They focused on the craft, the collaboration, not the portrait drama. Of course they did. Lila leaned over my shoulder, her auburn hair tickling my cheek. Your cheese speaks for itself. The article had already generated buzz. By noon, my online store had crashed from too many orders, and 3 high-end restaurants had called seeking wholesale arrangements. I was elated, but overwhelmed. I need to hire help, I admitted to Lila over lunch. Maybe expand the aging room. That's fantastic, she said, but something in her tone made me look up from my notes. What's wrong? She hesitated. Max called this morning about the exhibition. My stomach tightened. After the magazine interview, Preston Gallery had offered Lila a solo show, her first since leaving the art world. I'd encouraged her to accept, knowing how much creating meant to her. Did something change? I asked carefully. He wants to include the original portrait and the studies. She wouldn't meet my eyes. He's convinced they're essential to showing my evolution as an artist. We both knew what that meant. My face, my image, once again becoming public property. The cheese, maker, secondary to the muse. What did you tell him? That I needed to talk to you first. Lila finally looked at me. It's your face, Clara. Your choice. I was touched by her consideration, especially given what this exhibition could mean for her career. When would it be? 6 weeks from now. Opening night coincides with the downtown art walk. I nodded slowly, processing. Let me think about it. That evening, as I worked late adjusting the humidity in my aging room, a notification pinged on my phone. Diana had posted on her gallery social media, announcing an exclusive preview of TWWA's celebrated portrait series, including never-before-seen studies of her famous muse. My hands shook as I called Lila. She can't do this, I said when she answered. Those were private. She already is. Lila's voice was tight with anger. She scheduled it opposite Max's opening. She's trying to sabotage both of us. 2 days later, I stood in Preston Gallery's back room, facing a wall covered with my own image. The studies were more intimate than I'd imagined. Moments captured in quick strokes or detailed renderings. Me laughing. Me concentrating on cheese, curds. Me lost in thought. This is what Diana has? I asked quietly. Lila nodded, watching me anxiously. I'm so sorry. I never meant for anyone to see these. Why so many? I gestured to the wall of Jacqueline's. Because I couldn't get you right, she admitted, moving closer. Each time I thought I'd captured you, I realized I'd missed something essential. Your determination, your passion, the way you see the world. I studied her work. the progression from distant observation to intimate understanding. It was like watching someone fall in love through brush strokes. "We could pull them from the show," Lila said. "Focus on the new work. The collaboration pieces." Max cleared his throat from the doorway. "That would be unwise. These studies are profound. They tell a story. A private one," I countered. "Art is meant to be shared," he argued. "These pieces show an artist falling in love with her subject. That journey is the heart of this exhibition." Lila stepped between us. "It's Clara's decision." That night, we argued in my apartment, our first real fight. Not about the exhibition itself, but about what came after. "This is just the beginning," I insisted. "Once these are shown, I'll always be the woman from the portrait. My cheese will be secondary." Secondary. "That's not true," Lila countered. "Your craft is establishing itself, independent of the portrait." "Is it? Because 3 reporters called today, asking about our love story rather than my aging techniques." "Then we don't do the show," she said simply. "You matter more." The sincerity in her voice deflated my anger. I sank onto the couch beside her. "But this is your chance to reclaim your art from Diana." "At what cost?" Lila took my hand. "I won't build my comeback on your discomfort." We sat in silence, fingers intertwined, the question hanging between us. Finally, I asked the thing that had been bothering me most. "If the exhibition succeeds, will you go back to being a full-time artist?" Lila's eyes searched mine. "Is that what you're afraid of? That I'll leave the market? Leave you?" The vulnerability in her question made my throat tighten. I nodded, unable to speak. "Clara," she whispered, cupping my face. "The market brought me to you. Art brought me back to life. I don't want to choose." Her lips found mine, gentle at first, then with growing urgency. Questions and fears dissolved as clothes fell away. That night, touch replaced words as we learned each other's bodies with the same care we devoted to cheese and color. The solution came to me at 3:00 in the morning, surrounded by cheese wheels in my aging room. I'd gone there to think, finding clarity in the familiar sense of culture and time. "We combine them," I told Lila the next morning, pulling her into my shop before opening. "Not just the exhibition and my work, everything." She blinked sleepily, coffee mug clutched between her hands. "What are you talking about?" "The vacant storefront next door. I've been thinking about expanding anyway." Words tumbled out as my vision took shape. Half cheese shop and aging room, half art studio and gallery. Your work, my cheese, our collaboration, all under one roof. Lila sat down, her coffee eyes widening. A space where people could watch both processes. Creation as performance. Exactly. Visitors could see cheese aging alongside paintings evolving. I squeezed her hands. "No more choosing between your art and the market. No more separating parts of our lives." The idea took hold of us both. Within days, we'd contacted the building owner and secured financing. My father, thrilled by the expansion, invested his retirement savings. A small business grant covered renovations. Lila designed the space. Open concept, with clear divisions between cheese-making areas and art stations, but with deliberate sight lines connecting them. The heart of the design was the aging room, reimagined with glass walls and careful climate control, transformed into what Lila called a living installation. Inside, cheese wheels would age on shelves, color-coded to match the pigments that inspired them. Lila's studio would face it directly, allowing her to paint while observing the cheese's transformation. "Aging is art," she explained to the contractor. "Time made visible." We worked tirelessly for weeks, refining recipes and paintings by day, planning layouts and equipment by night. Sometimes I'd find Lila asleep at my kitchen table, color swatches and cheese notes scattered around her. Other times she'd pull me away from budget spreadsheets for impromptu dance breaks or midnight taste tests. The night before our grand opening, we stood in the empty shop, marveling at the transformation. The walls were painted in gradients inspired by aging cheese rind, from ivory to amber to deep russet. Custom shelving displayed both cheese wheels and artwork, each informing the understanding of the other. "Do you think it will work?" I asked, suddenly nervous. "Is it art? It's unconventional." Lila wrapped her arms around me from behind. "Like us." The opening surpassed our wildest expectations. Food critics mingled with art collectors. Market regulars discovered fine art. Gallery patrons learned about traditional cheesemaking. Even Max Preston admitted it was conceptually brilliant. To my surprise, the portrait studies, displayed in a small alcove with my explicit permission, became a talking point. Not about my image, but about perspective and devotion. Customers would move from the portraits to the cheeses, seeing the connection between how Lila saw me and how I crafted flavor. The artist captures essence in color. The cheesemaker captures it in taste, one reviewer wrote. Together, they've created something entirely new. As the evening wound down, I found myself in the aging room, adjusting the placement of a particularly promising camembert. Through the glass, I could see Lila chatting with customers, her hands animated as she explained her process. She caught my eye and excused herself, joining me in the climate-controlled space. "Hiding?" she asked, her voice echoing slightly in the specialized room. "Checking on my babies?" I corrected, gesturing to the cheeses. Lila moved closer, examining the wheels. "This one's my favorite," she said, pointing to an experimental blue I'd created using her custom coloration technique. "It's the exact color of your eyes when you're happy. Is that so?" I smiled, turning to face her. "I've made a study of it." Her fingers traced the edge of my jaw, a gesture that had become familiar and beloved. "I could paint your eyes 1,000 times and never get them quite right. You'll just have to keep trying," I murmured. "For the rest of my life?" she asked, a question within the question. I pulled her closer, the cool air of the aging room forgotten in the warmth between us. "That's the idea." As her lips met mine, I thought about time and transformation. How cheese needs patience to reveal its true character. How love follows. The same mysterious process. What had begun as a chance meeting in a repair shop had aged into something complex and irreplaceable. Outside, through the glass walls of our shared creation, the last customers were leaving. But Lila and I remained, wrapped in each other's arms beneath shelves lined with our collaborative masterpieces, some edible, some visual, all born from the same essential truth. The most beautiful things take time, attention, and the courage to combine unexpected elements.